Welcome to How I Got My Start in Finance. Peter and Jon Najarian are two notable names in the finance industry. As the co-founders of TradingMonster.com, Investitute, and as former NFL players, they've seen the chaos and the risks that come with playing the game at the highest level. In this interview with Tony Greer, the brothers share how they went from the football field to the trading floor and beyond.
Everybody always asks Tony, well, you guys twins?
Right.
And I always say, nope, 6 years apart.
Right.
Not sure if that's a flattering thing for me or not.
Flattering for me.
Is it a volatile spread, or does that spread look pretty much tight to 6 years the whole time?
6 years. Well, yeah.
It looks good. You guys look good. That looks right.
And I came out of playing football for the Bears, played 4 games, for the Chicago Bears, got cut. I don't know why I was so surprised when I got cut. I was surprised only because I played in the preseason, and Singletary held out on his contract.
Okay.
He was the guy they drafted in the second round. They drafted Van Horn in the first. Both these guys started and had long pro careers, and Singletary's in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
But once they figured out, his skill set, which was immense, they decided to cut me. And so, like I say, I shouldn't have been so surprised, Tony, when I heard that knock on the door, but I was, for whatever reason.
Okay.
But my agent gave me an opportunity. He said, do you want to come down onto the trading floor? Because I said I didn't want to go up to Canada. I love Canada. I just didn't want to go up and try to play football up there. I know, number one, they have a limited number of Americans on each team.
Yeah.
Number two, they don't cover you at all for any injuries that occur. Only the Canadians are covered.
Wow.
So in other words, you're going up there, you're a gladiator, you're thrown into it, making no money, because I think I would have made like, $5,000 a game or something like that. $5,000's not nothing in 1981, but it's also not what I was going to be making in the NFL. And I figure if I'm going to risk getting hurt like that, I think I'll pass.
So football was actually your connection to the exchange.
It was, because my agent had 3 traders down on the floor that were basically running money for him. And they were all 3 former pro athletes. One was hockey, one was football, one was skiing. And he'd represented them in their various contracts. So when those careers ended, he said, hey, come on down, because I'm looking for guys that have discipline.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think that athletes in general, pro or otherwise, have to have discipline. And it's Pete's number one thing, mine also, as far as you got to have discipline if you're going to make it in this game, because a monkey can make money picking stocks. I used to have to go against a monkey every year. When I was at Fox.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they would bring in a monkey every year. And the monkey from the zoo would get a dart, and he'd either throw it at the dartboard, and they'd have stocks on the dartboard. And so I'd have to beat that monkey. Or they'd have a monkey come in and he'd crap on a newspaper, and wherever the crap landed on the newspaper, that's the stock.
Very technical approach they had.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So the monkey can obviously pick stocks. I'd like to say that I always beat the monkey, because I did.
Right.
But the reason I beat the monkey, at least partially, is because, Tony, I know, just like you as a pro trader, I know when to cut my losses. You got to have discipline.
Risk management skills.
Yep. And if you can't cut your losses, you're not going to make it, because even the monkey can, pick a stock that goes up 12%. But can the monkey cut the losses, or does the monkey take the profits? Right. But anyway, so that's what got me onto the floor. Was my agent was putting traders on the floor.
Very interesting. What ring did you start in on? What exchange?
I started on the Chicago Board Option Exchange as a runner. And so I literally, it's a euphemism. They didn't let you run, but you walked fast.
Yeah.
From the booths at the periphery of the floor to wherever an order needed to go, in the middle of the floor usually, to a broker. I couldn't execute or anything like that. I was just basically going back and forth as a runner, bringing orders from the desks at the periphery. Remember, this way before cell phones.
Yep.
And so all the guys have got, like, the 2 phones to their ear, like in Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheehan and all that.
Yeah.
Pretty similar, except that was, of course, upstairs, where you did a lot of what you did, Tony.
Right.
And this was down on the trading floor, but same idea.
Very
so
interesting.
that's what I did, was basically learned what was going on for about 3 months.
Right.
And then I started taking tests and getting ready to become a trader.
And then you got your badge, stepped into the ring, started trading options and open outcry.
Yes, sir.
And when did your brother join you?
So then Pete joined about 6 years later, because like I say, I'm 6 years older than
Okay.
Pete. And
Paved
Pete-
the way for him a little bit. You said,
He
come on
opened the
down,
door,
little brother, right?
Kick it through and everything.
And he'd been trading, or not, he'd been investing,
Yeah.
and he'd come through Chicago. I'll let him tell you about that. But
Yeah.
on his way, he was playing for Seattle and the Vikings and Tampa Bay.
Very cool.
And on his way to and from some of those gigs, he'd come by the trading floor in Chicago.
Okay, so what struck you about the trading floor? Was it the activity level, excitement level, competitiveness? What
All
what
of
turned
what
you
you
on?
just said.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything about it. I was intrigued early on. I was playing for the Vikings, John mentioned, and eventually I was down in Tampa. And whenever I do the trip back and forth, bringing my car down for the year, I would stop in Chicago for a couple days, join them on the floor and watch and be confused beyond words because it's the most confusing thing ever. And
It is.
I think people that have never been on the floor or seen it in person, it's not only confusing, but you have to understand that people are called market makers, which I don't think very many people really get that. They think you go to the floor and you buy a stock or an option or whatever, and that's really not the case.
Right.
You're making the market, and that's what John had been doing, and I watched him, and it's the most confusing thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah, I know.
To watch in person, as you know.
Yeah.
So, but it was intriguing. And I was lucky enough that I played in something called the World Football League. I actually did make a trip up to Canada as well. So I kind of played everywhere.
Right.
I was asked not long after I came to Chicago, I was asked to be a player coach in the Arena Football League.
Okay.
Which would have been cool. And I didn't do it, but Gruden's brother, younger brother, who's now the head coach of the Washington Redskins, did it. Wow. And but somewhere along the way, he and I had crossed paths earlier too as players. Uh-huh. But so when I was playing in the World Football League, and the first year we did well, and I was lucky enough to be an all-world linebacker, which is much better than all-pro, by the way.
Oh, great.
Much better.
I understand.
I mean, this is the whole world.
Yeah, the whole world,
But,
clearly.
But then we the second year we won the whole thing,
Okay.
and I'd gotten injured. I got injured in the first year. I got injured again in the second year, and I just decided I was almost pushing 30 years old. I got to get a real job.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to play in the NFL, there were guys coming out of college who didn't have any injuries, and I had a phone book version of injuries.
Right.
So I went to Chicago. I thought it was interesting with John early on, but it was the most confusing thing. It took me a long, long time. And then once you get it, and he said this from day one, he goes, there will come a day where you're going to say, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that day finally came. And I did the same thing as John. I went from runner to clerk to assistant to a trader, and then eventually became the risk manager of our firm.
A smart man saw a need for competitive and disciplined men. That decision to seek out former professional athletes like Peter and Jon Najarian brought their approach to a whole nother playing field. For the Najarian brothers, it was a little more profitable than football. For Real Vision, I'm Justine Underhill.